So just want to make sure that that's if that's okay, then you all can kick it out. But we're here.
Nope, absolutely. All are welcome.
Thank you.
Alrighty, well, we're recording. So, like I've said, it's going to repeat myself for a third time here, but hello, everyone. Appreciate you joining us this evening. This is our virtual pre-proposal information session on the ranked choice voting notice of funding availability. County Board's really excited to announce this NOFA. The intention is to support public education and outreach around RCV in advance of the upcoming general elections. As you probably know, the county board first implemented RCV in our Democratic primary a couple of years ago, 23, for the county board. And since then, we've approved its use for both primary and general elections, including this upcoming November 4th, 2025 general election. To ensure that folks are well informed and confident with using RCV, the county boards charged us and allocated $60,000 in one-time funding for fiscal year 2026, and the intention of this funding is to support creative, effective new outreach efforts that help the public understand how RCV works. So like I said, it's really to make sure that folks are well informed, they're confident, and that the board has the information that they have or that they need in order to deliberate and make decisions on RCV moving forward. So obviously we are inviting proposals here. The intent of these proposals needs to be focused on education, engagement leading up to the November general. Any projects that are selected are going to be expected to submit that final report by January 30th of 2026 with an accompanying presentation to the county board at the February recessed meeting, the date to be scheduled. The intention, like I said before, is to help inform future decisions on RCV and the fiscal year 2027 and beyond budget cycles. So as I mentioned already, before we proceed, we're going to be recording tonight's session. That recording and any questions and answers are going to be posted to our website no later than 5 o'clock this coming Friday. Obviously, we've had some questions submitted in advance. We'll do our best to address those off the top here, and then we'll open the floor to folks. You can ask any questions that you might have just coming into this session. We can't promise or guarantee that we're going to be able to answer those questions tonight, but we will take note of your question. We've got David Barrera on the line here who's going to help support this effort and support tonight's session, and we will do our follow-up and make sure that those questions and responses are posted timely. A couple of dates to keep in mind before we jump into all this. Obviously, tonight's the info session, 5 o'clock this Friday. Response and recording posted. July 18th, 5 o'clock p.m. That's not this coming Friday. That is next Friday is when your proposal submissions are due. There is a web portal on the Ranked Choice Voting website, Ranked Choice Voting NOFA website. It is a simple form submission, drag and drop. You can upload your files there. We will not open any submissions until that point. August 1st is our tentative date for project selection. Other factors might come into play, but that's loosely about when you can expect to hear from us. And then obviously grant agreements in early August should be finalized with project kickoff around that time frame. As I alluded to previously, David Barrera, the County Board's Communications and Policy Manager, is on the line with us tonight. He's going to be your main point of contact throughout the process. I do also want to give a special shout out to Board Member Spain Sr., who is joining here on the line tonight. He's here to just listen in. He's interested very much so in this process and appreciates everyone's questions, interest, and contributions to our effort here. So as I mentioned previously, we look forward to your proposals. We look forward to working together to make sure that everyone in this county is ready and confident to use ranked choice voting this November. And with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to David at this point, and we'll take a moment to start working through any questions that were submitted in advance. So David, unless I've missed anything, over to you.
Mason, I'm not sure if it's appropriate to ask folks to just identify themselves and introduce themselves to the group, or
yeah, absolutely. I apologize. Should have offered that.
Okay, let's start with Felipe, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, of course. Sorry, I was mute. Felipe Benitez, Executive Director of Corazon Latino, proud Arlington resident, and really excited to be here. We have been doing voter engagement for 25 years, and I'm very excited to have an opportunity at least to present something in my own backyard. And with JD Spain, he was at my ballot at my polling place election day. I had a chance to say hi, so I'm glad that he's following through. So,
thank you.
Appreciate you joining.
Anyone else like to introduce themselves?
Sure, I'll go ahead. I'm Krista Rosa. I'm a longtime Arlington resident. I'm a retired special education teacher. I've been spending many, many years as a volunteer with three organizations who have all been involved with ranked choice voting and voting registration: Spread the Vote, Upvote Virginia, and League of Women Voters. I spent a lot of time trying to help educate people and organizing volunteers to help talk to people starting in 2023. So I'm here to learn more. I'm not sure I can get a proposal in, but I'm working with other people who might be able to.
Thank you.
Appreciate you joining.
I'm Janice Morris. I'm work with Chris with the League of Women Voters and Upvote Virginia on ranked choice voting. And I appreciate this opportunity to chat with you all about it, and JD for wanting to educate more people. Thank you. We really appreciate that. So I hope we can, Chris and I can work together with the team and find some opportunities here that we can help you educate the public on ranked choice voting, which I feel very strongly about. So personally, I have to be honest, I just feel like it's transformational to democracy reform. So I want to emphasize how important this work is. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here at the end. I'm Claire Robertson. I work with Democracy International. So we're actually an organization that does voter education, outreach, and a range of other governance and democracy focused programs, both domestically and internationally. So we have we're hoping some expertise that might be relevant here. We also do quite a lot of analytical learning activities within this space. So really excited to hear more about also what the board is really trying to learn for the future to be able to implement this kind of voter education well. Ranked choice voting is complicated and there's a lot of technical language around it that's often shared. So trying to kind of help overcome some of that is a big interest of ours. Yeah, so thank you so much for hosting this and getting a chance to actually get to talk to others. And it's really great. Thanks so much.
Absolutely, and thank you all again for joining. So as I'd said before I kind of jumped ahead in things, we're going to start tonight's session off with those questions that have been previously submitted to us. We'll do our best to run through them just kind of question per question. Where applicable, we'll reference the application document itself so you can follow along. And once we've had a chance to do that, shouldn't take too long. I'm happy to open the floor here for general questions. This is primarily intended for technical questions about the application process, about the application itself, ranking criteria into the templates, anything of the sort. We are not here to advise on the proposals themselves or their content, more so just here to give you the tools you need to be able to prepare a complete and well-crafted application. So with that, handing it over to you, David.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and just go straight through the questions. And if you guys have any, I'll pause in between to see if there's any need for a clarification. That way we're not waiting till the very end. But the first question we received is, will the county board staff tell us where to target our efforts? So while consulting with the county board office staff and other resources, such as the existing survey results that we had conducted, that's recommended. The expectation of this NOFA is that the awardee, the awarded organization, would be the one to best determine how to engage. And so on page 2, under the proposal requirements 2C, that's where we have that specific requirement listed. It says identification of the specific communities or populations the organization intends to reach, providing a rationale for the selection. Does anybody have any questions associated with that? I think some of the other questions that were asked by the same individual may kind of help explain a little bit of the thinking, but happy to expound right now if anybody has any questions with that specific.
Both, obviously, you reference about that survey, and I was just wondering. Obviously, I'm assuming that will be made available for the organization selected. Is that something that we have access now, so we can start getting an idea? Okay.
Let me go ahead and share my screen really quickly to be able to show you where the survey results are located. So right here on the Ranked Choice Voting NOFA website, on the right-hand side, you can see the different background information associated with that. Let me go ahead and remove this out of the way. And so we did 2 feedback forms. So the 2023 and 2024 results are both here. You can go ahead and click on them. It'll take you right to the specific the results that we have from this form. We use public input as the platform to be able to do this, so a lot of this is auto-generated from the platform. I did some quality control myself. I was the one that conducted the survey. It was all online, anonymous. Oh, sorry about that. But yeah, all of this information is already available for you. The one in 2023 was the primary. Sorry about that. And then the one in the 2024 general elections, well, it's for the general elections. So all that already available for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any follow-up?
Herrera,
Yes.
can you remind me, those surveys, were they just online and whoever wanted to could respond, right? It was not
Correct.
not targeted in a like scientific manner or anything.
No. And I will be the first one to say it's not, we call them feedback forms. I did use the term survey, but we use the term feedback form because it was not scientifically conducted. It was anybody could participate. The good thing about the platform itself is that although it wasn't recording you, it took note of your device. So if you came in, accessed it again, it's not like you can do multiple submissions. It would recall the device. So if you submitted it, you wouldn't be able to kind of inflate the number, so to speak, or provide multiple submissions unless you were using multiple devices. So, but no scientific methodology associated with that. It was put out to the public, and anybody in the public anonymously could participate. Any other questions on that particular one? Okay. The next question was, would asking for funds to print door hangers and then distribute them qualify under the guidelines? Technically, yes. However, strategies must further the stated objective of increasing voter knowledge and comfort, and should also include a mix of digital, print, and grassroots strategies. On page 2, same underneath the proposal requirements 2D, that's where we have that I guess expectation listed out, a high-level overview of the planned outreach and education strategy, highlighting key and anticipated outcomes. So yes, that could be one of the strategies if that's in your proposal. Again, we won't weigh in on what could make a convincing proposal, but that could be one of them. Any questions on that?
Just based on that, and depending on the tactics, do you have, and I was just looking at this morning about have any estimates or official of eligible voters and registered voters? Would that information be available beforehand? Just obviously if we decide to go into one of these, how do we want to be able to calculate? I saw some numbers, but I don't know if you have an official source and an official count on eligible voters and registered voters.
I believe that our voter registration office may have that information, and we can definitely touch base with them. Whether we can use their information to be able to send out a mass mailer, I think we need to get back to you on that.
Yeah, that was my other follow-up, because that will be not only mailers, but also for telephone and social media, because obviously that's probably a better way to as a mix to have stuff. So if that information is available, that'd be great. But if not, also we can factor that in terms of if we need to get those lists or whatever we need to do.
That's helpful insight. We'll take a look at that, and we'll make sure that that's in the posted answers. JD, did you have a question, or did you retract it? Okay. Any other questions associated with that one? Okay. The next question we had is, how will the money be divided up among different groups? So funding is ideally intended for one recipient, but it may be possible to award funding to more depending on the scope of the submissions. It's just for us to be able to review the proposals thus far. Let me go ahead and let these folks in really quickly. Sorry. Different meeting. But however, recipients are encouraged, are very much encouraged to work with any local organizations to leverage, their background, their networks to achieve the stated goals and objectives. So attended one recipient, but depending on their proposals, could be many. Regardless, the expectation is that you would work with local community organizations to be able to meet those goals.
And if I might provide a illustrative example of that one, Dave, if you don't mind. A case where this might come up is if one organization who is more highly specialized in physical mailers, outreach, direct mail, et cetera, comes in with a proposal for, say, 20,000, and one who is much more experienced with digital marketing, community engagements, live engagements, that sort of thing, were to come in with a separate proposal, we would be able to take that into consideration as we weigh and we make those final evaluations. So there's some flexibility, but yes, this is ultimately intended to fill the entire scope of the work.
Any questions with that response?
No, I'm just surprised by that. I thought it was such a large amount of money that would be divided up amongst organizations, and as to what Mason just said, might be more effective if people use their own particular skill sets to target certain, minority groups or underserved areas, and divide up the money so it's kind of collaborative. But so yeah, I didn't realize that it was.
Well, like we said, we are absolutely willing and open to entertaining proposals in conjunction, if circumstances and if the scope of the varying proposals permits. That'll ultimately just depend on what we receive when it's submitted. So.
Thank you.
JD?
I went into this saying I was going to keep my mouth shut. Look, I would just say this, that points are well made, and I think it's critically important that there's a lot of data that is already out there on our website. And I think, Felipe, to the question you asked about, one, what is basically the voting population, you can start there. That's readily available. I think those reports are also on our website that comes from our local elections board. But I think, what working collaboratively and however an organization decides to partner, I think there's a lot of key data points that can be derived from what we have already done. So what we will be looking at, I think, as a group, is seeing, how can an organization accomplish the goals and the scope of what we laid out, right? The organization itself needs to be able to do this work, right? And whether you decide to lean into other stakeholders and use them as well, that's okay. But I will tell you, there's a lot of information already out there that will tell a picture, right, about who is missing in this conversation, right, about ranked choice voting. So it's incumbent upon the applicant to kind of do that and make a presentation, I think, to the board for us to consider.
I would like to take a really quick moment here. We've had a late join in, Mr. Henning. Just for background, this is a recorded session. We'll be posting it this Friday at 5 o'clock. So if you'd like to go back and reference the intro, any other questions that have been asked and answered, it'll all be on our website. But if you'd like to take a moment to introduce yourself, and we can jump back into our questions and answers.
Mr. Henning, you might be muted.
And if you're just listening in, that is totally understandable, and we are happy to move along, and you can reference a video.
Okay.
Of course. Well, appreciate you joining this evening. We'll jump back into the questions at this point then. David, over to you.
Thank you. Did anybody have any follow-up to JD's addition statement? Any additional questions on that? The additional question that we received was around kind of an answer already, but can the groups work together on a project? Again, groups are encouraged to leverage community connections and partners to achieve the stated goals and objectives. When are the start dates and completion dates of these education efforts? I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat and then just read them over, but I want to make sure that you guys have this in writing. There's 4 main dates that I want to make sure that everybody keeps in mind. Mason went over them earlier, but just for the sake of answering the question, the first estimated time in which we would select a project would be August 1st, followed by a September 12th wind-up meeting, a September 30th progress report, and then an October 14th status meeting. Mason, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that, but
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of give a little bit of flavor to those, and this is spelled out in a little bit more detail within the NOFA itself and within the template grant agreement. Purpose of that wind-up meeting is just to make sure you're not having any hitches or any difficulties getting your program off the ground. It's a quick check-in with David, just for good financial compliance and good stewardship of public resources. We want to make sure that you're moving along with your proposal. Status report about midway through the project, just to report out on progress to date, any challenges you're hitting, any planned adjustments along the way, and that final kind of pre-get out the vote period check-in meeting, again with Mr. Barrera, another final point of evaluation before we come into the home stretch of the meat of your program, which is the general election. With those major deliverable milestones of the January 30th final report submission to the board and a public presentation to them at their recessed 2026 February meeting.
And the evaluation obviously is planned or intended to be after post-election, right? Of the efficiency of the campaign and everything was mentioned, surveys or all focus groups. That will be probably immediately after the election day.
I apologize, I missed the first part of your question.
Oh, I was just wondering, part of the RFP mentions evaluation of the campaign itself. So mentioning polling or focus groups or whatever tool we decide to use or the grantee decides to use. So my assumption that will be after that, whatever tool is used is after election, right?
We would leave that to the individual proposals.
Okay, so we can.
Exactly. The only expected deliverable on this is a report on the
A
effectiveness
report and then
and
a
evaluation
presentation
at
in
that January
February.
30th. Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, my apologies. I cut out. Let me go ahead and paste the rest of that in this chat right here. Yeah, the 2 dates of January 30th, followed by the presentation at the board's February 2026 public meeting. My apologies. Any other follow-up on that question? Okay.
Hey, David.
Yes.
I will. You may want to lean in for organizations, and maybe Mason, that there is also for that meeting in February. They could also brief out, I believe, virtually. Are we amenable to that, or is that in person? Did we make that determination?
I believe this would be an in-person report to the board, if I recall the scope of the application itself.
Thank you, Jenny. Any other follow-up? Okay, our last question. Would the Arlington County Board be open to applications from organizations that are registered as for-profits but implement grant-funded nonprofit activities? Unfortunately, no. The way that this NOFA is structured, grant funds are intended for nonprofit organizations only. Any follow-up on that?
Even if we can demonstrate we basically only do all not-for-profit work?
Yes, unfortunately, that is by nature of the application, by nature of how grants are awarded by localities in Virginia.
And that's like statutory. I'm just curious. We haven't done something like this before, so this is a learning opportunity.
It is a statutory limitation within the state of Virginia and how it relates to municipalities.
Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Okay, and that brings us to the end of the submitted questions. If anybody had any additional questions, happy to take them now. Can't guarantee that we'll be able to have an answer, but we'll try to get them posted by Monday. Yes, Chris.
Yeah, so one of the things it says that we have to prove that we have a valid business license and have no overdue county business license taxes. I'm not sure our organizations are listed as businesses or have to pay taxes.
As applicable, so the intention of that, and I apologize for jumping in, but that is as applicable if your organization is a registered business within the county. We want to make sure that the organization is in good standing.
That's a great question because Corazon Latino is actually registered in Washington, D.C., although I live here and I'm secretary, also we have an office here, but we can provide from Washington documentation at least related to Washington, D.C., which we're in compliance and everything good.
Okay, excellent. And yeah, the intention there is just to ensure that any organization who is the subject of the
Right.
awards is in good standing.
Any other questions?
I was curious with a little bit, if it's okay to talk about, and I'm not sure if you can or not, but some of the context of the outreach efforts that have happened previously. So we read in the NOFA that there were materials used in some of these efforts before to educate voters that were produced by the Virginia Department of Elections. And I was curious if there were local organizations involved at that time in distribution of that educational set of materials. I don't know if
I
that's
believe
something
that
you all.
happened. I believe that happened organically. I'm
Okay.
not sure that I can speak to if there was a coordinated effort, but the voter registration office did make those materials available, and at least I can speak anecdotally that I did see some organizations, I won't mention which, that used them and made sure that folks in the community were aware of those materials. So obviously can't speak to a coordinated effort, but Chris, you've raised your hand, so you might be able to.
Oh. Well, we were one of the groups, I mean, two of the groups, I guess, that did have a coordinated effort. Maybe it didn't reach everybody in the county, but we were at farmers markets. We had numerous, this is Upvote Virginia volunteers, as well as League of Women Voters volunteers. And we were, held various events at different locations to try and work with people and tell them what's going to happen. So we did that a lot in 2023. I mean, if you need hours and locations, I can provide that, I suppose. I'll have to go back.
And I can attest that I saw you, Chris. I was I saw you. No, you were doing an amazing job. So thank you for that.
And the not only the Virginia Department of Elections, they did produce great materials, but our Arlington Office of Elections produced phenomenal materials, and they did a lot of outreach as well, including activities demonstrating how the tabulation would be done. In 2023, it was pretty challenging because we had 2 seats open on the county board, and tabulation for 2 seats or more, much more complicated and difficult to understand. Right now, we're just doing 1 seat, so it's much easier to explain to people. But yeah, our local, we have to give credit to them. So that's one thing I did notice in the report, that they did not get credit for what they had done.
And
Thank
Claire,
you so
I'm going
much
to
for that.
go
Yeah.
ahead and put in the chat the specific website now that we broached that subject, where a lot of those materials are centralized. There's also a video of the county board explaining why they supported ranked choice voting as well. A lot of what Chris just mentioned is either implied here or centralized in this location. I know that the Office of Voter Registration puts out these great reports of the work that they do annually. I'm happy to grab the previous copies of 2023 and 2024 to send over to this group.
Thanks so much. That's super helpful.
JD.
Yeah. So what many folks on this call may not know, but I know Chris and Janice may, and for Claire and Felipe and Mike, I've had the fortunate pleasure of having gone through ranked choice voting for a couple of years, right? From when it really first started here. And, what I just heard was, yes, it wasn't a coordinated effort. And I'm going to remind people of this, but this was a decision that was made by the county board, right? To implement and ranked choice voting. So you have to square, right, this implementation against the 170 some thousand eligible voters, right? And if you're going to make a data-driven decision, you look at how many folks participated in each of these elections, base it on whatever, but how many folks participated in our survey, right? And then you can discern from that, right, really, that we still have a lot of work to do, right? Why do I say that? because you have, once you travel out of a certain circle, right, within Arlington, you will quickly find, even in an area where we have about 15% of our electoral population that are really transient, you will see you have people coming and going all the time into Arlington who are eligible voter. They may be new voters, but they have no idea about ranked choice voting. So this is really the first time that the county board has gotten behind in large scale by way of money, right? $60,000 to say, hey, we want to do something on top of what our community stakeholders and nonprofits have been doing that are really all about ranked choice voting. But for me, right, as an elected leader, I will tell folks that the burden does not rest on the community to educate the electorate. The burden falls on the individuals, the organizations that implemented it. So that's why it's, again, critically important that we get this right. Right. And so whoever is going to go on this journey, I don't think, quite honestly, the buck stops this year. This is going to be a continuum. And there's a lot of examples across America that you can look at where ranked choice voting has been implemented, from a financial aspect, what it took, right, to really get folks educated. So we're just getting started, really. If I can just share those thoughts, but we have, but I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes, and I think we're going to do well. So just want to share my perspective and some thoughts, because I'm going to be following this at least for the next 3.5, 4 years that I'm on the board, Mason and David, and probably hopefully years to come, to get to a point to where ranked choice voting is really like everything else. It becomes, folks understand it, and there is no barrier, right? Even if we're going to have two people up for reelection and we decide to do ranked choice again, which it'll be here before you know it in a couple of years, we will be faced with that again. And we're going to have to make a decision whether, given what happened last time with tabulation and all that, do we still want to, are people ready for this, for ranked choice? So that being said, thank you for allowing me to say a few comments there, Mason and David. Again, I know it's supposed to be, I can't get away from a crowd. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
I have
Woody.
I have a follow-up just based on what JD mentioned. And this is obviously a lot has been said about the the methodology and the analytics and all the stuff that and the targeting. Uh, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to confirm it. Will the organization or organizations selected will there be a very strong coordination both with David Mason and perhaps with other bodies? And I'm saying this because obviously, and I want to ask this because in some occasions we've been receiving federal grants and state level grants for 8 years since inception. Sometimes these grants could be very hand on hand, let's do this together, or sometimes as you go and just report back. And for instance, in a very tactical way, I would love JD to film a video and explain me how it is because he has the personality. So I'm just wondering to what degree there will be a collaboration with all of you, with the county, and with the resources. I'm also thinking about distribution. I'm also thinking about access to public media. I'm thinking a lot of ways that on a tactical will make things easier, or if not, then at least it's good to know from the beginning if what kind of coordination, collaboration, or we may have with the county.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Well, if I might, David, actually jump in first.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say that any proposal needs to be able to stand on its own two legs. However, we do very much welcome and encourage proposals that, in addition to the aforementioned community partnerships, institutions that are embedded within our community already, we do very much welcome proposals that seek to collaborate or leverage, partner with county board resources. We're here to help amplify the message. We're here to help get it out. But I think the subtext there is that the proposal should in and of stand on itself. We're not here to inform the decision making behind the proposal or inform the nature of your work, but we are absolutely here to help partner and amplify it.
And to highlight a part of the document itself on page 2, under proposal requirements in section 4, we even note, please use county consider how to use county board members themselves as trusted messengers within the community in the furtherance of any of the outreach or educational activities. So, like JD said, we want to get it right. We do have a hand in this, and so that is something we have thought about. So, if you want to include a board member, that is part of what the hope and the encouragement would be. Any other further questions?
David, let me just real quick. I dropped in the chat because I think Felipe asked this question. You can go to this hyperlink, and if you go to the bottom of the page, you'll see that our local elections department did a really good job. So you already have the results, kind of like their post-election reports, right? For the recent June primary, the general 2024 election, the dual. So that those documents and are created by our local elections department. So good point of reference. I don't know, David, if this is on our web page, but just wanted, because you asked the question, Felipe. Just go here.
Yeah,
And
I see everything. That's fantastic. Thank you, JD.
And all of that is intended to help inform and guide the proposals and your methodology behind it. So we're here to provide access to data, access to resources, access to the information that you need in order to make an informed proposal.
And this is the reports that I was referencing, Claire. So this is exactly where it's centralized. Thank you, JD. That's one less thing off our checklist. You're muted.
I'm here to the end, David. We're going to get this right.
So are we. Any other questions, comments?
I have another one to that point, I guess, and maybe, I don't know if JD is accepting questions as well, but getting at kind of like populations that are missing, right? That we're trying to engage in these efforts to really educate about ranked choice voting. It seems like based on the data that at least was shared in the links from the NOFA and looking at, kind of basic statistics about the Arlington County population and eligible voters, there certainly is a gap between even those who are engaging in an electoral process. That is something we know about local elections across America and many other places. And so I was curious if previous efforts have considered what goes hand in hand with kind of the get out the vote effort plus the ranked choice voting education effort, and curious where JD, you kind of, I don't know if you have a perspective on what's come before, or David or Mason, and if there are other plans or the county board has sort of thought about how, what does that interplay look like in this effort? Because since there is obviously the great dedication coming from the board to really engage in this, it seems like it is a bit of a two-part challenge potentially. So just curious if you're willing to share any thoughts on that.
Yeah, and so a big part of our NOFA and a big part of what we do as a county is our race framework. And I know that it's for those that are following along on page 4 at the very top. One of the things that we are going to ask proposals to consider is that framework. It's 4 questions: who benefits, who is burdened, who is missing, how do we know? And so in any sort of education and outreach initiative that the county takes, these are 4 basic questions we always ask. Now, in the survey or the feedback form process that we did last time, that was somewhat of an opportunistic moment where we were trying to gauge something that was easily attainable, knowing full well that some of the challenges for access or participation would show up. And it was very clear if you go, and I'm happy to spend some time taking a look at the survey results. It's very clear if you look at our most recent Arlington profile, we're not approximating the level of outreach by race categories, by renter, homeowner category, by age categories. So a lot of that may be self-selection. It was optional in the first time around, and half of our respondents didn't respond. This time around, it really wasn't. And so the self-selection was a little bit more obvious because it tended to be mostly white, older folks that owned. And so part of this proposal should be to try to reach the other groups and find a sustainable way to be able to do that. Happy to go over the methodology that we went over, happy to kind of dissect if necessary. what our thought process behind why there was limited uptake, but what we have encountered previously showed up, and our survey, our feedback form rather, I need to make sure to keep saying that, especially on record, was not immune to that. So definitely the proposals have to consider that race framework. And we're happy to consult and talk and identify organizations, especially in communities. We took zip code data as well, so there's some understanding of how far the survey penetrated in some areas, if that's easier. But there has been some thought put into that. But this is part of why we need the NOFA, is that we definitely need more of the expertise to be able to I guess, address some of those systemic issues that we've had in the past. JD, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, I'll go after our illustrious and chair. I mean, clerk
So
of the
used to
county
saying
board. I want to call him chair, but go ahead, Mason.
No, I was just going to say, if you're looking for a point of reference for how to craft a proposal that speaks to these previous efforts and to that race framework, the appendix, I want to say it's Appendix 1. Yeah, Appendix 1 of the NOFA application spells out how our review panel will be assessing these proposals with that framework and with these previous efforts in mind.
So Claire, you make you have a really good question, and I think the interplay between seeing the data before us and what we've done in the past, and I think David also alluded to this. I think honestly we're kind of starting at, we're probably about 10% out the chute as far as engagement. I'm sharing a lot of this because it goes back to something else. I think we wanted to bring in, at least I did, and I think my colleagues are on the same mindset now. We want to see another level of how we can engage, because, admittedly, I would say we may not have all the answers, and we're not the subject matter experts in this area. There's a lot of folks, a lot of organizations out here who know how to engage strategically on given a certain topic, right? And so we have an amazing public engagement apparatus for Arlington County, but this is, again, more streamlined directly for voting. And so how you message, how you use, digital technology, human engagement and interaction, and do some level of verifiable statistical analysis with voters, right? I think that will help inform you and also, give you some good data for the backside of your report. And when I say confirmed, I think figuring out who the voters are, identifying who they are, right? And capturing that over a short and then ultimately a long period of time. So we don't kind of do like a lot of repetitiveness with people engagement, I think is key. But again, we all realize this is $60,000 too, right? This is not, I'm not going to talk about what the other jurisdictions have done, but I can tell you it's been a whole lot more than $60,000. And I think most of us know that, right? So, we start out slow at first and we increase speed with proficiency. How about that? Okay. Mason?
I don't have anything to contribute. Just want to note, do want to make sure that we have sufficient time in our session here. I know we're scheduled through 8, so probably plenty of time, but want to make sure that we're focused on any technical questions about the application process, anything contained within the grant agreement thereof. So wanted to bring us back to questions about that. Always happy to continue this conversation here and elsewhere, but anything else relevant to the process behind the NOFA application or follow-up process itself?
Can I ask who will be on the NOFA selection committee? Will that be you three that are here, or?
No, there will be an independent panel assessing applications.
Independent panel. Okay.
Any other further questions?
I was just wondering if in the submission, are we including both kind of technical proposal and financial budget all in one document? Is it supposed to be kind of one singular document that we're uploading to that portal?
Yes, correct. And I believe attached to the application itself, not page, but the second appendix outlines brief template, suggests what a budget might look like. And then within the text of both the grant agreement that the board has adopted, it's a template grant agreement, as well as the application, it kind of spells out what the various financial reporting requirements are going to look like.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Going once, going twice.
There you go. Okay, well, we will make sure that the answers that we have provided are in written format and posted by Monday. And Mason, this Friday. I said Monday before. Glad you corrected me on the record. And this recording will also be made available, Mason?
Yes, we will also have a copy of this posted alongside the written Q&A. So here for ease of reference, along with all of the data that exists online, everything else that has been posted previously. David remains accessible to you throughout the window of time between now and when applications are due. Here for, like I said, any technical questions about the application, any questions about the NOFA generally, questions you might have about ranked choice voting, our history with it, our implementation. We're here to be resources and guide you through this process. And I think the key takeaway here, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the rest of the board, is we really appreciate your time and we appreciate your interest. We're just looking to make sure everyone is comfortable and ready to vote and ready to use RCV come November.
Thank you for all the
And
work. It
what's
should be fun to write.
What's in the chat will also be included in your, what you provide us for follow-up.
We will make sure that a version of that is available to you. So maybe not a direct chat log, but we'll make sure that all the links and resources are clearly spelled out.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much.
Muchas gracias.
Oh, likewise. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Too.